Aria's voice cracked as she stood before her mother, the weight of years of betrayal finally surfacing. "I can see, Mother," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "I've never been blind." Maeve's face turned pale, but she remained silent, eyes wide with disbelief. "I've been able to see for weeks now," Aria continued, her voice growing stronger. "I've been watching you, waiting. I thought maybe you'd come clean, that maybe all of this was just a mistake, a horrible misunderstanding. Maybe you truly thought I was blind, but I've realized the truth, Mother. You knew all along that I wasn't blind, didn't you? You used that paste, that foul mixture, to take away my sight on purpose." Maeve shook her head, tears beginning to form, but Aria's rage would not be quieted. How could you make me believe that I was broken, unwanted by my own father? All those years, I trusted you, I depended on you, and all this time, you were the one who kept me in the darkness, lying to me, using your paranoia to justify your cruelty. Her hands trembled as she wiped away her tears. Why was it to control me, to keep me from seeing the world? Maeve's face drained of color as the weight of her lies came crashing down around her. She stumbled back, her eyes wide with shock. The truth hung between them, heavy and painful, as years of deception unraveled in an instant. "I did it to protect you," Maeve whispered, her voice cracking. "Thanks to all our returning subscribers and welcome to our new viewers. We appreciate your continued support and are excited to have you join us on this journey." After losing her first two children and haunted by village superstitions about those born different, a mother's fear drives her to blind her own daughter, hiding her unique eyes from a fearful community. For 15 years, Aria lives in darkness, but the truth will soon surface. Stick around to witness how a mother's protective instincts turn into a heartbreaking tale of control and cruelty. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to follow this intriguing story as it unfolds. Maeve had once been a joyful, carefree woman in the village, admired for her beauty and grace. She had married a kind-hearted man named Elias, who adored her deeply. Together, they lived a modest life on the edge of the village, blessed with happiness but struggling with one heartbreak after another. Maeve had given birth to 2 children before Aria, but both had passed away in infancy due to illness. Their loss left a deep scar on Maeve's heart, and when she became pregnant with Aria, she was filled with equal parts fear and hope. Elias was a strong but quiet man, a farmer who provided for his family with hard work and unwavering love. But even his steady nature couldn't shield Maeve from her growing fears. Superstitions ran deep in the village, and when Aria was born with one brown eye and one blue, Maeve's joy was overshadowed by terror. Elias, practical and unbothered by superstition, insisted that their daughter was perfect, but Maeve couldn't escape the whispers that she knew would follow. The loss of her first 2 children had broken something inside her, and she feared losing Aria, not to death, but to the village's harsh judgment. The villagers were a suspicious lot, quick to believe in omens and curses. Maeve had grown up in that same village and knew how cruel people could be. Children with unusual features were often labeled as cursed or bad luck, blamed for every misfortune in the community. Maeve had heard enough stories of babies being abandoned or worse, all because they were born with something different. She would not let Aria be one of them. Maeve loved her daughter fiercely, but that love twisted into something else, an obsessive need to protect her from the world. In her mind, Maeve was saving her daughter by hiding her unique eyes. She couldn't bear the thought of Aria being shunned, mocked, or even worse, driven out of the village. She decided to make it appear as though her daughter was blind. Elias tried to reason with her, but Maeve was determined. She started covering Aria's eyes when she was a baby, claiming that the sunlight was too harsh for her delicate vision. By the time Aria was old enough to walk, Maeve had developed an herbal paste that she applied to her daughter's eyes daily, ensuring that they remained hidden beneath the burn of the medicine. The strain this caused on their marriage was undeniable. Elias loved his daughter and didn't believe in the superstitions that plagued Maeve's mind. He thought it cruel to keep Aria blindfolded, to deprive her of the chance to see the world. But Maeve, consumed by her fear of the village's judgment, refused to listen. As the years passed, Elias became more distant from his wife. As he turned his back, Maeve would apply the painful paste on his daughter's eyes. After a confrontation which led to a heated argument with Maeve, she told Elias that he could leave because he wasn't the father of Aria, so he couldn't stop her from protecting her daughter. Elias was heartbroken, eventually leaving the family. He didn't go far, just to another village to start anew, leaving Maeve and Aria behind. Maeve raised Aria alone from that point forward, her paranoia growing with each passing year. The ritual became an obsession. Every morning, Maeve would smear the burning paste over Aria's eyelids, ensuring that her daughter remained blind, instructing her not to wander off too far and not to go outside without her sunglasses. Aria, being an obedient child, nodded and promised her mother she'd adhere to her instructions. With a kiss on Aria's forehead, Maeve headed off to work. Aria wore her dark sunglasses everywhere as instructed by her mother. She also carried a cane, navigating the world under the guise of a girl who could not see. Daily she'd go out to get fresh air, but would always end up at the community river where she found peace. A few of her peers would usually accompany her home, or at least most of the way. Though Aria grew up believing she was blind, her beauty was unmatched. Her delicate features and radiant smile captivated everyone in the community, making her a beloved figure in the village. The girls her age all wanted to befriend her, drawn to her kind nature and graceful presence. Despite her supposed blindness, Aria became the talk of the town, admired for her strength and beauty. But not everyone adored her. Rosalie, one of the village girls, held a special grudge against Aria, consumed by jealousy. Rosalie envied the attention Aria received from the village boys and the way everyone seemed to speak so highly of her, even though she couldn't see the world around her. Aria, however, was unaware of the envy directed her way. She was a good daughter, always cheerful and trusting, and her mother, Maeve, was her everything. Aria hung on to her every word, believing everything her mother told her without question. Maeve had been so convincing that the young girl simply accepted her fate without complaint. Aria never went to school, and while other children were learning and playing together, Maeve kept her home, saying that the outside world, especially the bright sunlight, would be too much for her sensitive eyes. Aria believed her mother's warnings, unaware of the deeper truth hidden from her. Maeve told her tales of how she had been born without sight, how the sun was too bright for her sensitive eyes, and how dangerous it would be to try and open them. Aria believed every word. To her, the paste that burned her eyes was a necessary part of life, something to be endured for her own good. Maeve never allowed Aria to leave the house without applying the paste. Aria never questioned her mother's care. As a child, she trusted Maeve completely, relying on her mother for guidance. Maeve was Aria's eyes, leading her through the world, teaching her how to navigate without vision. Despite this supposed blindness, Aria thrived. She was intelligent and quick to learn, mastering skills that others found difficult. She could move through their home with ease, her hands brushing against familiar surfaces, her feet memorizing the steps between rooms. Though Aria never went to school, she excelled academically. Her love for music turned into a passion for learning, and she spent hours listening to audio lessons, absorbing knowledge quickly. With an exceptional memory, Aria mastered the entire curriculum, keeping pace with her peers despite her supposed blindness. Often, she would rehearse her lessons at the village square, reciting them aloud with the other children. The villagers were in awe of her resilience, marveling at how a girl without sight could perform so well in her studies. To them, Aria was more than just a student. She was an inspiration, a symbol of strength and determination in the face of adversity. Her ability to thrive despite her circumstances filled them with admiration, and they openly praised Maeve for raising such a remarkable child. Little did they know, however, that Maeve was guarding a secret that, if uncovered, would change everything they believed about Aria's blindness and the lengths Maeve had gone to conceal the truth. The boys in the village, in particular, were drawn to Aria's beauty. Despite her blindness, her striking features captivated them. She had inherited her mother's grace and beauty, with her long, dark hair and delicate features. Even without seeing her eyes, the boys would speak in hushed tones about her. This, of course, did not sit well with the village girls, who grew jealous of the attention Aria received. Among them was Rosalie, whose own jealousy would soon take a dangerous turn. Aria loved to sing. Her voice was like that of a songbird, filling the air with melodies that drifted through the village. She often made her way to the river's edge, where she would sit for hours, singing to herself and listening to the gentle flow of the water. It was her favorite place, where she felt at peace despite her blindness. One afternoon, as she sat by the river, singing softly to the water, Rosalie watched from a distance. Rosalie had grown tired of hearing the village boys talk about Aria, how beautiful she was, how graceful. It didn't matter that Aria couldn't see them. The boys still adored her, and Rosalie couldn't stand it. Jealousy had festered in her heart for too long, and she decided that it was time to do something about it. Creeping closer, Rosalie waited for the right moment before shoving Aria into the river. Caught completely by surprise, Aria splashed into the water, her sunglasses slipping from her face as she struggled to keep her head above the surface. The current pulled at her, and she flailed, her arms reaching out blindly for something to hold onto. But as the water rushed over her, something incredible happened. The paste that had coated her eyes for so many years began to wash away. The burning sensation she had always known started to fade, replaced by a cool, refreshing feeling. Aria's heart raced as she realized she could see. Her vision was blurry at first, but she could make out shapes, the outlines of trees, the shimmer of the water, and even the colors of the sunset. She gasped in shock, unsure if what she was experiencing was real or just her imagination. Aria's struggles had attracted the attention of an old woman who had been washing clothes further down the riverbank. The woman rushed to her aid, pulling her from the water and helping her sit on the bank. "Are you all right, child?" the old woman asked, her voice full of concern. Aria nodded, still too stunned to speak. She blinked, trying to clear her vision even more, but the world remained hazy. Still, she could see. She could see. For the first time in her life, Aria looked around at the world with her own eyes. She stared at the trees, the flowing water, and the face of the kind old woman who had saved her. Tears filled her eyes as the realization hit her: she had never been blind. All these years, her mother had lied to her. The question now in Aria's head was, why? Did her mother lie to her, or had she been miraculously cured of her blindness? She had so many questions, but decided to keep them to herself, fearing her recovered vision was temporary. Aria didn't tell her mother about what had happened at the river. She didn't want to worry Maeve and needed time to figure out what it all meant. Who had pushed her into the water? From that day forward, Aria began secretly washing the paste off her eyes each morning after her mother left for work. With each passing day, her vision improved, and she could see more of the world around her. She practiced walking without her cane, memorizing the layout of the village and testing the limits of her newfound sight. It was like rediscovering life itself, and with each new day, she grew more confident. Aria continued to play along with her mother's routine. Each evening, she would reapply a small amount of the paste before Maeve returned home, pretending to be blind as she had always done. But inside, a quiet rebellion grew. She had seen the world now, seen the trees, the sky, and the faces of the people she had known her whole life. She could no longer be the girl who lived in shadows, and she began to plan her next steps. One evening, Aria sat at the table, waiting for her mother to return. She had decided that it was time to confront the truth. When Maeve walked through the door, tired from a long day, she froze in place as she saw Aria sitting there, without her sunglasses, her eyes wide open. For the first time in years, Maeve saw Aria's eyes in their natural state, one brown, one blue, clear and bright. Aria's voice cracked as she stood before her mother, the weight of years of betrayal finally surfacing. "I can see, Mother," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "I've never been blind." Maeve's face paled, but she remained silent, eyes wide with disbelief. "I've been able to see for weeks now," Aria continued, her voice growing stronger. "I've been watching you, waiting. I thought maybe you'd come clean, that maybe all of this was just a mistake, a horrible misunderstanding. Maybe you truly thought I was blind. But I've realized the truth, Mother. You knew all along that I wasn't blind, didn't you? You used that paste, that foul mixture, to take away my sight on purpose." Maeve shook her head, tears beginning to form, but Aria's rage would not be quieted. How could you make me believe that I was broken, unwanted by my own father? All those years, I trusted you. I depended on you, and all this time, you were the one who kept me in the darkness, lying to me, using your paranoia to justify your cruelty. Her hands trembled as she wiped away her tears. Why? Was it to control me? To keep me from seeing the world? Maeve's face drained of color as the weight of her lies came crashing down around her. She stumbled back, her eyes wide with shock. The truth hung between them, heavy and painful, as years of deception unraveled in an instant. "I did it to protect you," Maeve whispered, her voice cracking. "The truth is, I was so afraid. I didn't want him to hurt you, to treat you like something cursed. I lost your siblings. I couldn't lose you too." Aria's voice trembled with anger and hurt as she confronted her mother. "How could you, Mom? How could you be so cruel, so wicked? You purposely blinded me, took away my sight because of your own paranoia and twisted fears. Was the story about Dad not wanting me because I was blind even true? Or was that another one of your lies?" Aria's eyes, one brown and one blue, glistened with unshed tears. "You've lied about everything else. Maybe you lied about him too. You kept me in the darkness when you knew all along that I wasn't blind. How could you do this to your own daughter?" She took a deep breath, eyes blazing. "I trusted you, and you took that trust and twisted it into something ugly, something I may never be able to forgive." Aria was furious and didn't want to stay around her mother anymore. She decided to leave home and search for her father. Maybe, just maybe, he would accept her. Anywhere was better than staying with her mother, who had kept her in such a condition all these years. She packed a few of her things and made a plan to leave, but when she tried to go, her mother blocked the door, rushing toward her with the sunglasses. Aria forced her way through the door of her childhood home, her heart heavy, her mother Maeve pleading and begging her not to leave. But Aria's mind was made up. She had endured too much, and the time had come for answers. With a picture of her father in hand and her determination fueling her every step, she left the village behind. Her mother's cries faded as Aria headed toward the neighboring village in search of her father, Elias. On her journey, she encountered a few kind villagers who pointed her in the direction of his home. Each step deepened the ache in her heart, the memories of abandonment and confusion haunting her thoughts. When she finally arrived at Elias' doorstep, her emotions overwhelmed her. Wiping her tears, she summoned the courage and banged on the door. A beautiful mature woman, with a calm, strong presence, opened the door. Dressed in a short blue dress, she looked at Aria with curiosity. "Hello," Aria greeted politely. "Is this the home of Elias?" The woman narrowed her eyes slightly, her expression unreadable. "Who are you?" she asked. The woman, Felicia, seemed taken aback. She hesitated before asking Aria to wait outside and went to notify Elias that a young girl was at the door, claiming to be his daughter. Elias, shocked by the news, hurried to the door with Felicia right behind him. The moment Aria saw her father, all her pain rushed to the surface. She ran to him and embraced him tightly, tears streaming down her face. Elias, too, held her, feeling the weight of all the lost years. Felicia stood in silent confusion, watching the emotional reunion. Elias led Aria inside, telling her to make herself comfortable. Felicia, still bewildered, asked him what was going on. Sighing deeply, Elias sat both his wife and Aria down to explain everything. He told them the story of how Maeve, his first wife, had become paranoid and forced him to leave after he tried to stop her from putting harmful medicine on Aria's eyes. Aria had been born with heterochromia eyes, and Maeve feared what the villagers would think or do. When Elias gave Maeve an ultimatum, she revealed that he wasn't Aria's biological father. Heartbroken, Elias ended the marriage and started a new life with Felicia. Felicia was shocked, her heart aching for the little girl who had suffered so much. "I can't believe a mother would do this to her own child," she murmured. Aria, still shaken, cried as she told her father that her mother had lied to keep him away. Maeve had used the lie to continue her cruelty, keeping Aria under her control. "Dad, I've suffered for years because of the eye paste Mom used on me. Please don't send me back. Let me live here with you," Aria pleaded, her voice trembling with emotion. Elias was stunned, his heart aching as he looked at his daughter. "You don't have to return," he said softly, "you're welcome here." After a pause, his face clouded with confusion. "But how did you find out?" Aria shared everything. How she had been pushed into the river and nearly drowned, how the medicine her mother had used to blind her had been washed away in the water, and how an old woman had saved her life. She explained how she secretly washed off the remaining poison every day after that, waiting for her mother to confess the truth. But the confession never came. Maeve continued the cruelty, and when Aria could no longer endure it, she left to find her father. Now that Elias knew the truth and had been reunited with his daughter Aria, he felt a deep pang of shame and regret. He couldn't shake the thought that, had he fought harder to take Aria away from Maeve, he might have prevented the years of suffering she endured under her mother's twisted form of protection and love. But as painful as those thoughts were, Aria was here now, standing before him. He was determined to do everything in his power to make up for the lost years, the years stolen by Maeve's manipulation. Elias silently vowed to be the father Aria had always deserved, ensuring she would never have to face that kind of darkness again. Elias woke early the next morning, determined to make Aria feel comfortable and loved in her new home. He prepared breakfast for Aria and his wife, Felicia. Omelets, freshly squeezed orange juice, and toast filled the dining table. The aroma filled the air, and Aria, still adjusting to her new surroundings, awoke to the warm scent. When she saw her father and stepmother waiting for her with welcoming smiles, she rushed over to greet them, feeling a sense of belonging she hadn't known before. After they finished breakfast, Elias gently told Aria that they would be visiting an eye doctor to check if her eyes were okay. Aria agreed, trusting her father's decision, and they made their way to the ophthalmologist. At the clinic, after thorough examinations, the doctor revealed that years of harmful substances being applied to Aria's eyes had caused some damage. However, there was hope. With proper treatment and care, Aria had a strong chance of fully recovering her vision. The doctor prescribed treatments and special glasses for her to wear during the healing process. Aria was overjoyed at the prospect of seeing clearly again, but Elias was furious. The thought of the pain and harm Maeve had caused filled him with rage, though he remained composed for Aria's sake. They thanked the doctor and headed home, a mixture of relief and anger lingering in the air. Despite everything, Elias was determined to help his daughter heal, physically and emotionally, and make up for the lost time. With the truth laid bare, Elias and Aria launched an investigation into what had really happened that day at the river. After speaking to various villages, they discovered that it was Rosalie, a troubled girl in the village, who had pushed Aria into the river and left her for dead. When Elias confronted Rosalie, she admitted to her actions but claimed she had been angry and didn't realize the full consequences of what she was doing. Despite Aria's forgiveness, Elias couldn't let go of the pain caused to his daughter. He insisted that both Maeve and Rosalie be held accountable for their actions. Months later, Elias and Aria confronted Maeve. She was apologetic and deeply remorseful for all the harm she had caused her daughter. Maeve explained that her mind had become consumed by paranoia and fear after losing her two older children, and that her grief had transformed into a toxic obsession with Aria's difference. Though Elias and Aria forgave her, Aria no longer felt safe living with her mother. She decided to stay with Elias and Felicia, who had become a loving and supportive mother figure to her. The community buzzed with news of Maeve's wickedness, astonished by what she had done to her own child. But as time passed, the villagers became more accepting of Aria's heterochromia eyes, letting go of their old superstitions. They moved forward, embracing Aria as one of their own. Maeve, meanwhile, was sent to receive psychiatric help. It was revealed that she had been suffering from psychological issues since the deaths of her older children, and her grief had twisted into paranoia after Aria was born different. Rosalie, on the other hand, was sent to a school for troubled teens, where she rehabilitated and eventually became a better person. 9 years into their marriage, Elias and Felicia were blessed with twin boys. To their amazement, both boys were born with heterochromia eyes, just like Aria. Elias and Felicia were in awe, showering their baby boys with love. Aria, now 16 years old, was overjoyed to finally have siblings after spending so many years feeling alone. Aria's life flourished from that point on. She was enrolled in a prestigious school where she excelled in her studies. Her love for music and literature opened many doors for her, and her future looked bright and full of promise. Free from the darkness of her past, she embraced her new life and family with gratitude and hope. Though she no longer lived with Maeve, Aria often visited her mother, checking in on her to keep her spirits up. Maeve, receiving the help she desperately needed, was slowly healing. She was at peace, knowing that her daughter had found happiness at last. Aria's journey had been one of pain, betrayal, and revelation, but it led her to a place of peace, love, and understanding. She was no longer bound by the fears of her past or the superstitions of her village. Surrounded by family, with a promising future ahead, Aria had found the freedom to live her life as she truly was, a daughter, a sister, a scholar, and a musician, with a heart full of love and a spirit finally unburdened by the darkness of her past. This story highlights the dangerous consequences of unchecked emotional pain, fear, and how unresolved trauma can ripple through generations, inflicting harm on those we love the most. Maeve's loss and grief, which turned into paranoia, led her to isolate herself from the world and even push away her husband, Elias, in a desperate attempt to create a bubble of safety around her daughter, Aria. However, in doing so, Maeve unintentionally inflicted the very pain she sought to prevent, forcing Aria to live in darkness for 15 years. Her fear consumed her, blinding her to the damage she was causing to her daughter's life. Elias, on the other hand, although he loved his family, failed to recognize the depth of Maeve's emotional struggle. He didn't see that she needed more than just his love. She needed professional help to cope with her trauma. His inability to act or see beyond the surface allowed Maeve's pain to fester, which subjected Aria to years of unnecessary suffering and emotional scars. Rosalie's jealousy and malicious actions, which led her to push Aria into the river, ironically became the catalyst for Aria's liberation. What Rosalie meant for harm turned into Aria's salvation. The water washed away the harmful substance that Maeve had applied to Aria's eyes for years, revealing the truth not only about her vision but about her entire life. It serves as a reminder that sometimes, the adversity we face becomes the very thing that sets us free from the lies and burdens placed upon us by others. The undeniable message in this story is the importance of paying attention to the emotional struggles of those around us. Just because someone seems to be functioning doesn't mean they are not suffering internally. It's a call to be more compassionate and supportive, to be vigilant in checking on our loved ones, and to offer help even when they don't ask for it. We must be our brothers and sisters' keepers, understanding that internal pain, when left untreated, can spiral into destructive behaviors that harm not only the individual but everyone around them. Ultimately, the story teaches us that healing is possible. Maeve's eventual acknowledgement of her actions and her willingness to seek help allowed her to begin the process of redemption. Aria's forgiveness, Elias's insistence on justice, and Rosalie's rehabilitation show that while pain may linger, it is possible to find hope, healing, and redemption if we choose to confront the truth and seek the help we need. Did you enjoy this story? If so, give us a thumbs up on this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you'll be alerted every time we post a new video. Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Until next time.